This is a cloud virtualization track. The talk is called Virtually Owned Pen Testing Virtualization. Please give a warm welcome to Claudio, Criscione.
Thank you, Alex. So, can you hear me? No. OK, fine. Can you hear me now? Better? No? Nice start. OK. Hello to everyone. Is that working? Perfect. OK. OK. Better. OK. Hello to everyone. I'm Claudio Criscione. And this talk will obviously be about pen testing virtualization. We all have had lunch, so I'll take this one easy and just wake you up before the demos, OK? So relax. A little about me. As you might have guessed, I'm from Italy, a country which you most likely know for our pizza, mafia, and a crappy soccer team. I work as a principal consultant in a small security firm based in Milan, Secure Network, where that's my day job. And during the night, I am a PhD student for Politecnico di Milano, which is Milan's technical university, where I will finish in 2000 years, maybe. And I'm also an editor for virtualization.info, one of the most influential blogs in the industry. I used it to be web application pen testers. Then I moved since a couple of years in virtualization environment, and that's what I'm doing most of the time right now. Before we start, I want to do a very quick poll. How many of you are in charge or use or handle security for virtualization environments? Raise your hands, please. Oh, almost everyone. Fine. That's the percentage I was expecting. I know about you. Well, that's exactly why I'm here, because virtualization is becoming endemic. It's everywhere now. You can find it in almost every large enterprise systems, enterprise network. And there is a definite need for security. Virtualization is the building block for your own network. It's the building block for your own infrastructure. And it is a critical component of any large new deployments. However, security in virtualization has mostly been addressed until now with a lot of vaporware and management and policy talks. That's why I'm getting technical and talking to you about pen testing, which is quite, I have to break inside virtualization. That's the idea. Breaking inside virtualization means a lot of things. For instance, it means that you're hacking the underlying layer. So you're actually attacking what's behind, what's under your servers. It means most likely that you will be able to access all the systems locally. It means that we will have physical access, as far as virtualization goes, to the machines, which in turn means that you will be most likely able to hack them. If you can access the virtual machine console, well, then it's game over. It also means that you most likely will be able to bypass all those nice network access controls and access controls that you have been deployed. So if an attacker can get to the virtualization environment, you actually screw it. That's the point. And you also get multiple targets at once. If I can get inside your virtualization server, your SCESX or whatever kind of virtualization you're using, well, most likely I will have access to a lot of virtual machines. That's jackpot, basically, from an attacker perspective. In this talk, we will be using the attacker perspective. I guess you all are familiar with what pen testing means. It means that you are trying to break inside a virtualization solution. It means that you are patting up the head of the attacker, and you're thinking like he does. So if you look at virtualization, you have a lot of stuff to gain. There is a lot of gain here. There is, there is a huge benefit for an attacker to break virtualization. And it's almost everywhere. 96% of the Fortune 1000 companies are using virtualization. And what's even more interesting, you get a small number of solutions actually deployed, because in the end, I can only think of, well, a very small number of different solutions you can find around. So if you manage to have an exploit, to have attacks for that small number of virtualization solution, well, you get access to a lot of systems. You can own a lot of systems with a few exploits. I don't know about you, but a lot of systems, few exploits, for me, is more or less heaven. Okay? And if you don't know about that, okay, you do, okay. And if you don't know about that, I strongly encourage you to convert to the Flying Spaghetti Monster religion. Well, this said, since we are speaking about virtualization, I guess you're all expecting that I speak about something in particular. So let's speak about the elephant in the room. This talk will not be about escaping the VM. No way. First of all, because I'm not able to, so that's an interesting point. But there is another reason, actually. Because, yes, escaping the VM can be done. It has been done in the past, so we know it can be done. You can go from the virtualization, from the virtual machines to the host systems. But however, it will be due to a bug. It will be due to an exploit, likely, not a design issue, most likely. It can be patched. And yeah, it will happen again in the future. But from a pen testing perspective, it doesn't really mind that much. Yeah, from a security perspective, it does, obviously. But if you're pen testing an infrastructure, that's not what you're really interested in. What you want to do as a pen tester is to be able to start with an IP address range and own whatever you find. That's more or less what you're trying to do. That's at least what my customers tell me. Here are the IP addresses. Can I at least know? No, go pen test. And yeah, most of the time they don't even give you the right IP addresses, but that's not matter. So what we are going to do is attacking the virtualization infrastructure. That is, we are attacking the virtualization solutions. OK, how are we going to do that? I got a plan. So I like easy plans. I like plans with not really a lot of things to do. Well, my favorite things are the auto-Pwned modules. Just click, play, and own, and wait, and get paid at the end. So that's what we are trying to do. My plan is a 3-steps plan. Follow me here, please. Number 1, recon. Number 2, attack. Number 3, Pwned. And in the end, beers, obviously. So that's the plan we are trying to follow. How are we going to do that? Well, the point is, in this environment, in this space, in pen testing virtualization, what we are lacking are the tools. There are really no tools to do that. Most of the tools you are used to, for instance, I don't know, all the vulnerability scanners, they know very little about the virtualization tools, the virtualization systems, and are not really able to help you. Well, it might depend from the fact that I am going to tell you about some of the attacks that I discovered and they didn't. So most likely it's that as well. But we actually need new tools to do the job done, to get the job done. So in this talk, I will be using a tool that I developed with the help of some fellow hackers to show you some of the actual real-world attacks that you can perform on virtualization environments. The tool is Vasto. Vasto is a virtualization assessment tool and an ICT in Italy, by the way. And it is basically an exploit pack for Metasploit. Why? Because I don't like learning new tools every day of my life. Maybe developing then, but not learning, definitely. So I wanted something which I was familiar with, which I could build on top of, and which would give me some standard features. What I really hated about the other tools is that they are like dispersed. So you have to use 1 gazillion tools to get the job done. I like to have few tools. So what we did is we developed our own framework, our own toolkit. Today, I released beta 0.3. That's the 3rd iteration of Vasto with new modules. Obviously, it was featured at the Arsenal yesterday. Yeah? Vasto? It's secret, but you can guess at the end. During the question and answer, you can guess, and I will tell you if you get it. It means large, anyway, like me. So I have to say thanks to various fellow hackers for having helped me developing the tool. And this is the tool we are going to use for all our demos, so when you wake up, and for all the stuff we will do in the future. One thing about virtualization is that you see a lot of vulnerabilities around. In the last years, there were some vulnerabilities disclosed, but not that many exploits. I don't know about you, when I tried to find the exploits for the various vulnerabilities from the vendors, they didn't really release any exploit. Maybe in some commercial pack, but don't really think that way, so no exploit. That's why I started writing Vasto as well. OK, this is a talk about pen testing virtualization, but you cannot really pen test an idea. You have to pen test on software. So in this talk, we will have a demo target. We will have a demo. We will have demos. And our demo target is VMware. Sorry for that. So the point is that VMware is large. It's the most well-known vendor. Maybe they have the most complete solution, but that's an evaluation I'm not doing here. However, those are the bigger target, so the biggest target, so I'm shooting there. Easier to get, OK? So all the demos will be on VMware. Actually, I will be presenting a methodology as well. I mean, some points that you have to consider when you pen test virtualization, which you more or less can apply to any virtualization solution. All the exploits I'm revealing today were found during normal pen test activity. We have been pen testing virtualization solutions since a couple of years. So you can do that once you know the methodology. OK. This said, let's get to the actual stuff. The first thing we have to solve is the recon phase. We'll keep it short because we don't really care about recon. We want to hack. So the answer we have to give is to the question, how do I notice? How do I identify virtualization? So how do you know that it's virtual? OK. So there are some recon ways to do that. Mostly, you have two ways. It can be local or remote. If it's local, you can check some of the telltale signs, like the MAC address. You know that VMware has got a MAC address space, so you can tell if a machine is a virtual machine just looking at the MAC address. Or you can use some hardware assess methodologies, like the red pill and all the methodologies which malware employ to detect if they're running inside a virtual machine and own you with my exploits. But those are not really interesting for a pen tester. Because once again, you were given the list of IP addresses. So what you need to do is to identify virtualization solution remotely. So you have to be able to say, OK, this is the network, and I have this virtualization solution, this environment deployed here, and this other here, and with this version, which I can do this and this bad stuff with. So this is also helpful if you have to discover hidden virtualization deployments, like when your developers are building their own virtualization environment for testing purposes, and they're not telling you, and guess who's keeping that updated? No one, obviously. So we needed some module to do this identifying stuff. What we did is we built our own scanner for Metasploit. I guess you're all familiar with the Metasploit scanners, but basically they have some very nice features, like being able to accept network ranges or IP ranges and all this kind of stuff, and we leveraged that. So first module, VMware version. That's the first module you have to know about. It's the easiest one. You just run it, and exploiting some very nice SOAP API, which you can call, you can get the exact version of the VMware solution you are facing. So this is the first module I'm going to demo. There's a quick demo, just to have the demo gods notice I'm here and bless me. And so you get a feeling of how the actual solution works. So what we are going to perform a request on a virtual machine running on my computer, running an ESX, a vCenter deployment. We'll get to the various details of what all the components of VMware are later. But for now, let's just see how the modules work. So this is Metasploit, as you know, obviously. So what we are going to do is we are simply going to load the Vasto modules. All the Vasto modules are under auxiliary Vasto. As soon as you download it from the URL I'm giving you at the end of the presentation. So we are now using VMware version. The only thing we need is set our hosts. We set their air hosts IP. So we use just one IP. That's the IP address of a virtual machine running on my computer, running vCenter. So we run it. We set the IP. We could use change the port and so on. And we just run the exploits, the detector. And we just detected a vCenter server version 4.1 and a given build. That's the machine which was used for almost all the demos, and which is basically a standard installation of Windows 2008. So this is the VMware version module. Very trivial module, very easy to write, very easy to use. Can detect all the targets in the network. So first step during a virtualization pen test, detect your targets. That might help. OK, this said, let's get back. What? Yeah, I love OpenOffice. Let's get back to the talk. Yeah, from the beginning. So we get VMware version. So we identified those VMware machines, so VMware servers. What we need now is a strategy to attack them. What we need is multi-layered attack, just like this cake. Yum. My strategy is quite simple, actually. It's 5 steps. The 5 steps are, 1, attack the client. Everyone is doing client-side attacks today. It's very fashionable. If you haven't solved even one exploit client-side, you're not a really good hacker, but that's not matter. So the first thing we are going to attack is the client. Then we attack the hypervisor. Here, hypervisor is not meant to be just the layer, the software layer, which actually does the virtualization, but also the supporting modules, the core supporting modules. What you do then, you attack the supporting modules, which are all those nice services which are laying around opening ports in your infrastructure. Then the management console. And once you've done all of these, you get to the internal stuff. So you try to attack the local machines. So first thing first, the client side. In order to understand how we attack the client, we have to say a little bit more about the clients in the virtualization environment. We all started with binary clients. Very nice installation, which you could run in your own computer. Then everyone moved to the web applications. So web application clients, which don't really work, apparently. Because now we're all back to binary clients again. So for VMware, you have the VI client, which is a Windows-only application. For Xen, you have Accent Center application, which once again is a Windows application, where there is also an open source Linux version, I think. So we have to attack binary clients. Can we do something with them? Yeah, likely. I would not have talked to you about that other way. So I'm going to present you an attack which was disclosed more or less 1 year ago, but it's still working on any version of the VI client. In order to understand the attack, we have to see how the auto-update feature of VI client works. This is a schema reconstruction I did by sniffing the traffic. There is some weird stuff going on, so I'm not sure it's the proper process here, but that's what actually happens on my computer. Basically, when you try to do login, so you press login in your client, the first thing happening is that the client is requesting the server a client/clients.xml file, which is a description file which the server uses to say to the client, hello client, I am version 5, and this is my description. So I am version 5, this is my name, and all this stuff. It's presentation, I'm shaking. Then there are some API calls going on. Once again, the request for the clients.xml file, no clue why, and then the login. Okay, that's what happens, actually. Yeah, the interesting part, obviously, is the clients.xml file. Look what's inside. You have, well, some configuration stuff, the audio port, the version and the patch version that the server is declaring. So, hello, I'm version 3. What about you, client? Are you version 2? OK. Then you showed how to update on that download URL. And please do download that file and run it on your local machine. So if that does ring any bell, I hope it does, you can obviously think to attack that stuff. That's exactly what I've done. I have developed a module which is called the VI Lurker. The VI Lurker is a client-side attack which assumes that you are able to do man-in-the-middle against the administrator, so you have to be in the same network. And this is one of the very good reasons to have the administrators sitting in a different network from the rest of the world, maybe like the consultants which are visiting your infrastructure, like happens every time. So the point is that almost no one is using trusted certificates. All this stuff, obviously, thanks God, runs on SSL. So it should be secure. The problem is that almost no one is installing trusted certificates on the remote servers. They're all using self-signed default certificates. So what happens is that a man-in-the-middle attacker can just change the certificate and serve a crafted XML file to the client, to the administrator. And the administrator will just run the update, get owned, and then you're screwed because you just lost your administrators. And if I can get your administrators, I get all the infrastructure. As a bonus info, keep in mind that that's why I say that not everyone is checking SSL. Old clients, like the server version 1, is not checking the SSL certificates. And you even have in other clients, like in the OpenXen client, you even have non-SSL connections. So it's not to be given for granted. This said, there is also no-code signing but the user gets a certificate warning. So this is the wrong certificate. The user can't tell there is something going on. Unfortunately, no one is using trusted certificates. So let's see this attack. I'm going to use some videos here because the infrastructure which would be needed to run all this stuff is quite complicated, and for another good reason I'll tell you later. So I'm going to show you a video of the VI Larker attack working, hopefully, which is this one. I will zoom, don't worry. OK, so in this video, you have on the left side, the victim, that is the VI client. As you might see, I'm running inside VMware itself. I'm leveraging Unity. On the other side, we have the attacker. You have the attacker using Metasploit console, so Vasto. What we are going to do is we are going to run the auxiliary Vasto VI Larker module. The only parameters we will be setting is the local port. We are going to use a standard payload, this one, the Meterpreter payload, okay? So leveraging standard Metasploit feature. That's why using Metasploit is so cool. We'll set the local port. We'll set SSL to true. That's a must-have. And we'll launch the server. We'll launch the exploit. Then on the other side, we're going to connect to the vSphere client. We're already man-in-the-middle position for this demo. So there is no need to do all the ERP stuff or the ARP stuff to get into man-in-the-middle. So what will happen is that, well, here we go. We get the certificate warning, so we get it. But obviously, the administrator will just see, go on with my work, stop working for today, and guess what's going to click? So the administrator now gets a pop-up asking him to run the installer. So do you want to run the installer, whatever it is, or you want to save the installer? No clue what the installer is all about. So what's going to happen here, as you can see, we have a log of a given client connecting to us and asking the clients.xml. Obviously, the administrator is going to say, oh, yeah, they have updated the server. Let me install. We create the exploit. We create the Metasploit payload, which is run. Then there is, once again, a pop-up. The vSphere client update package has been downloaded. Would you like to restart? Oh, no, we don't get to ask it for that. We just be notified that we have to restart the client. We say, OK. Now, I used a very lame plugin, a very lame payload. So what you will see is a Windows firewall pop-up. And of course, the administrator has just been owned. So now, we just uploaded the exploit. And it is just a matter of connecting with a multi-handler plugin, set the payload to the bind TCP payload we have been using, and connect to the remote host of the administrators. Once we connect, we use the sessions, open the session, and own. Game over. OK? So thank you. So, and you're not seeing the better part. So this is the clients.xml file and the VMware VI Larker attack. Client-side attacks, a lot of fun, but there is not really anything you can do if the administrator is going to accept the fake SSL certificate in the end. I mean, if you're stupid, you deserve it. But apart from that, you get another way to attack. The hypervisor step is, as I said, attacking the core components. In order to understand what the core components are, I shall give you a very short idea what VMware environments are all about. So a VMware.zip version. So what you have inside for VMware, now VMware will kill me about this, but let's just keep it short. You have some desktop products like the workstation, the player, which are today not very interesting from pen testing perspective. There will be in the future, I'm sure, more client-side attack, more Ionio attack, but for now, we're going to concentrate on server products, which are ESXi, which is now called Hypervisor, I believe, in the last release, and the VMware server hosted product. This is what they call the hypervisor layer, that is the actual servers doing the virtualization. Then you also have a management node, which is the virtual center of vCenter, which is the management console, which you can use to manage all your deployment, your large deployment. This is all you pen testers have to know about the virtualization infrastructure, because those are the targets. So usually you just point to the target and shoot. So hacking the hypervisor layer is more or less as giving a direct hit to the virtualization solutions, because you are shooting where the actual virtualization happens. on this matter, there was a very nice exploit released last year, which I just ported to Vasto, so you only have one tool to remember. You don't have to download 1 gazillion tools. And it was the guest stealer, so I'm just saying to you that it's there, no meaning in explaining other people's stuff, but basically it was a path traversal which was discovered by Flick and Morehouse and presented last year. It was a path traversal in a core component of the hypervisor, let's say the hypervisor layer, but it's actually a network component. So once again, what you have to do is set Vasto toward an old outdated server and just run it, and you will be able to retrieve any file as the root user. So, of course, the shadow file or any non-running guest, because it would be locked otherwise. So it works on all the outdated ESXi server. This has been great news when it came out. They did a whole talk just on this exploit, which is great. It was great. However, I always felt that the most rewarding attacks are those attacking all those nice components all around the environment, because those are the ones which are more likely not to be updated, taken care of. You just deploy and forget what's going on those components. That's exactly the reason why I've been attacking them. So the next step will be attacking support components. What is a supporting component? Well, it is any non-core component which is more or less shipped by default, or you can expect to find almost every time in any installation. It's always interesting attacking external components because you can find all sorts of stuff inside them. So what I did is I started trying to find a way to get inside those components and probing them all. If you run a port scan on a vCenter server, you will find a lot of open ports, and for the better part, you won't have a clue what they are all about. There will be mostly HTTP, HTTPS ports doing some SOAP stuff, some weird stuff with web services. So quite a mess to get to attack and all this stuff. So basically, this attack, the attack I'm going to tell you about, I found it during a pen test, which was running out of time. So I had to find something quickly. So I started browsing to a local installation of vCenter. And what I found out is that there is a very interesting component in the vCenter installation, which is not installed by default, but you can expect to find it in any large installation, any worldwide installation. This component is the host update feature. It is the host update manager. Basically, it's a component which is responsible for deploying security patches on the remote ESXi host. So I loved the idea of being able to hack the patching component. That would be nice. So what I've done, I've researched the component, and it turns out that it is vulnerable to a directory traversal as well, because it runs an outdated version of Jetty, of an application server, which is distributed inside the application, inside the component. It's vulnerable to a bug which is more or less, I think, 1 year old or something like that. And it's actually easy to exploit. Unfortunately, this bug as well was not, this exploit as well was not available when I looked for that. When I tried to find it, I asked the Jetty team. I would not like to thank them because they didn't give me the proof of concept, so I had to reverse the code and find the exploit. So the magic string here is actually very simple. It's just an encoded question mark, which you can use. And you can download any file on the vCenter. Huzzah, we got it! No, unfortunately not. Why? Well, you're now reading any file on a Windows machine, because vCenter runs on a Windows machine. So you have a Windows box, and you can read any file as system, because this service runs as system. OK, what would you do? I accept any suggestions here. Any idea? You can read any file as system on a Windows machine. What do you do to own the box? Yeah, nice idea. That's what I thought. I just get the SAM file. Unfortunately, the only SAM file I could read was the backup one, and they changed the password. So, didn't work. OK, fine. Yeah, me too. There was really an horrible day. I found this exploit. I was like, I couldn't use that. So what I did is I tried to find another way to use this attack. OK, now follow me, because it's non-trivial. What I tried to do is I tried to find some way to get some information to own the vCenter. I was not interested in the server anymore. I didn't want the operating system now. I just wanted the virtualization server, the virtualization environment. That was my customer was paying for, so that's what I wanted. So what I tried to do, I tried looking toward all the log files. What I found is rather weird, because there is one log file which is well documented. You can find it. It's not secret. In VMware, in the VMware installation, by default, which stores a very interesting snippet of information, which is very nice to have from a pen testing perspective. Did you know about the VPXD profiler logs? Those are performance logs. So you can find if your vCenter is working OK or not. What I found inside, well, there's a lot of stuff, actually. I did not analyze all of them, just looked for this one. What I found is that inside the VPXD profiler log file, you can find the session ID, the SOAP session ID of all the users with just logged in. Bingo. So all we had to do is to read the file through my exploit, today our exploit. I didn't find it. I actually just noticed that it was there. Get the SOAP session ID and own the box. I just wait for the administrator to connect, get his session ID, write this session, and I'm done. And once again, it was, huzzah! No, didn't work. Because that's the client. Where do you write the SOAP ID? What I tried to do is to hijack the client and start doing that manually, inserting the session ID manually inside the client. It didn't work because there are very tight timeouts. So you just can use a username and password. I didn't have username and passwords. I only have a SOAP session ID. I needed to write the session. So I had to get back to writing the exploit for that as well. What I did was doing just like the monkeys. Do you know what monkeys do in Saturday evening? This. OK, they go around on dogs. Well, what I did was I wrote my own session writer. Well, actually, it's crappy code, OK? I'm making it very long, but it's actually very simple. What I did is I just wrote a proxy which was able to emulate, to fake all the login phase and the beginning of the connection with the VI client and just inject the SOAP session ID inside an existing session so I could write the remote user session. The problem was just that being a binary client, you cannot just start from show me the list of machines. It doesn't work like that. It has to go through all the states of the finished state machines, the finished state automata. So you have to do all the steps properly. So the VMware session writer module will just get a session ID and let you write another user session by faking all the login procedure and give you the access to the remote server. Since, as I told you, I'm very lazy and I like one-click exploit, what I did is I crossed the last two exploits and I built a VMware Pwned module, which you can find easily on Vasto. Let's see how it works out. Once again, video, but ask later for me for a live demo, no problem with that. There you go. So this is our target. This is vSphere 4.0, but it works anyway on 4.1. Okay? For this stuff, VMware issued a patch for the Jetty stuff. There is an update available. There is a script you can download for the knowledge. What's the name of that? The knowledge base. And you can just apply the script and run the script, and you will be safe. It was released, I believe, on the 19th of July. However, this attack will work on any default installation, and it's not an automatic patch feature. So as pen tester, it's good, because I don't believe a lot of people are going to patch. Maybe after this talk, but not really a lot of people. So we're going to attack this vCenter server. As you can see, it's running on a virtual machine. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a standard connection, okay, just like the administrator would, just to write the session ID inside the log. Just write the session ID inside the log. So here it is. The administrator is logging in. So just standard connection, nothing strange here. It loads the plugins. And now the administrator, evaluation version. Now the administrator is going to work, to do his job, which is creating folders mostly. OK, now there is one little detail which drove me nuts when I was preparing this video, and that's the reason why I'm not doing that live. Because the log file is not like written in real time. So you just log in and look for the session ID. You won't find it. It's written every 5 minutes. It's flashed on the disk every 5 minutes. So notice it's now 0:40 on the clock. So it's now being written on the disk, and you should be able to see the disk activity in a moment. Yeah, here it is. So this is instead the attacker. Okay. So this is Metasploit running in the attacker box. What we are going to do, we are just going to use, well, to do some typo, and then send the remote host IP address. And that's the only information the auto-pwn module actually needs. So we set the remote IP address, and yeah, just to prove you, it's the right one, no fake here. Yeah, no fake in a video. And we run the auto-pwn module. We run the exploit. So what's going to happen here is that the exploit, the module, is going to go through, cycle through, because the log is rotated. So you have to find the right one. So it's going to all the logs, find it in the log, downloading the log through the directory traversal vulnerability, parse the log for session ID, gets the latest session ID. You can tune this one, but yeah, gets the session ID, and then start the local proxy, starting the local proxy. So what we do now is we just connect to the local proxy and write the session. So let's get to this is the attacker desktop, obviously. And as you can see, the attacker is going to connect to a different server with a different port. That's where the proxy is. So we just enter, this is the keyword, bypass me is the keyword, so the module can know that it has to activate. You can also use this module to sniff a password, but then that's not very interesting. Come on, we want to own without a password. So this is the certificate warning, unfortunately, but it's the attacker after all. And we can see the attacker connecting, and you can see there are two different session ID, because the first session ID is the one we have to provide to begin the login procedure. Afterwards, we inject the stolen session ID, as you can see. Okay, this is 664. Okay, this is the stolen one. So we start using the stolen one, injecting the stolen one back inside the client. So now the performance will more or less suck, thanks to the powerful Ruby language, and we will be able to start to assess the remote host. Here it is, no password. Thank you. Evaluation pop-up. OK. Notice that we are the administrator right now. OK? So we are just inside the administrator session. What if the administrator logs out? Well, we kick it out as well. So we have to take care of that, being quickly creating the user or using another module, which is not released now because 90% of the time it screws up the remote server, so you don't want to use that now. But we have to give permissions to another user to be administrator quite quickly. Otherwise, we get kicked out. But I'd say that in a pen test, that's more or less enough, OK? You get inside, and now you can operate. You can do whatever you want as the administrator, like creating a new folder, which is what administrators do. OK, there we go, Pwned, and so on. OK, so this is the auto-pwn module, which is one of the ways which you can assess the remote server. However, I developed this some 10 days ago. However, while I was on the plane, with nothing to do but being on the plane, I started doing some research on the last version of VMware, on version 4.1. And I found something which is quite interesting, in my opinion. I guess you all know Tomcat, right? Yeah, you do. So VMware knows too, because it's using Tomcat to run most of its services. However, the administration panel was disabled in previous versions. Well, guess what? In version 4.1, it has been enabled back. So it's there. And there is a standard user, which is VMware admin, which is your friends. So in all my tests, 3, the password for this user has been randomly generated and is 4 uppercase characters, 1 number, and 1 lowercase character, starting with a lowercase character. So I don't know how many, maybe there are like 60 million different combinations, and just doing that, the number, making up the number by mind, but could be possible to pen test, to brute force it. However, there is another thing which I would like to point you out. This is a VMware vCenter installation running on top of Windows 2008. Oh, before anything else, let me show you the log file. This is the VPXD profiler log, which I just downloaded. And if you just look for administrator, you can see that you have a lot of logs referring to these administrators. And, well, I can't zoom on this one, but inside this log, you can find the sub-session ID as well. If we go hunting for them on the file system, so if you want to check on the file system of the remote vCenter host, we can see, well, I can't see, but you should be able to see that program files, where is it? Here it is. No, let's say it's program data. The log is situated in program data, VMware, which is, I can see, is this one, VMware, infrastructure, virtual center, it is. We have the logs, and here we have the log. And quite interesting is that any user can read that. So any user with actual local access to the vCenter server can take over the server. So that's one of the reasons why VMware correctly says that you should not allow local access, even remote desktop access, to the vCenter. Okay, so that's why they're saying that. There is very good reason, one of the reasons at least. The other thing, as I was saying, is that there is the Tomcat installation here, which is, there we go, program files, and VMware, and infrastructure, and Tomcat, conf, and Tomcat users.xml. Let's open with Notepad. And as you can see, we have the VMware admin user with a, well, not easy, but an interesting password. And with this password, what you can do is you can launch your own very favorite browser, point to the remote server, and this is the standard, the default Tomcat page, which you get if you connect to the remote port. This is VMware host, remember? 150 is the IP of the VMware server you just seen. We just connect to this port. We get the Tomcat manager. There should not be the Tomcat manager here, but what we do is you just use a VMware admin user with the password we just stolen, which is this one. Let's see if I can do copy paste, but I'm not really believing that. Let's see. No. There we go. And you just have full control of the vCenter server once again, because you can upload any WAR file you like. There is already a module on Metasploit to do exactly that. Okay? So that's once again another way. Okay, that was from the plane. So maybe there is more to do there, but I'm not sure about that. Not researched that enough. Okay, there is still more, obviously, because we're still leaving out the management part. So we're still leaving out all the management interface, which is what you use to actually administer your VMware server. So there is a lot to do here, because that's the front-facing component. Mind you, users should not be able to see all this nice stuff, because your VMware vCenter server should be confined in the management network, well hidden from all the rest of the network. It doesn't happen in my experience. Okay, it doesn't really happen. So what we are going to do is we are going to attack the interface, which is a lot of fun, usually. It is web-based in this case, so it's not client, it's a web-based interface. For instance, VMware has got the web access interface, which is complex system, which is very hard to make secure. There is nothing really particular here when you pen testing it, because it's a web interface, so you can pen test with OWASP standard ways, the pen testing guide, for instance. But there are some interesting insight in it. For instance, you might know there were cross-site scripting attack, which were obviously not ported to Vasto for now, because Metasploit doesn't support XSS, to the best of my knowledge, and a URL forwarding vulnerability, which I read about, and once again, no exploit for that. I don't know if you remember that. There were a bunch of updates to the web access interface, to the web interface some time ago, but no exploit for them. So we had to reverse that. Oh, as a bonus, if the user ever has access to the local vCenter system, the shutdown keyword has not been changed. What does it mean? Well, it means that if you connect locally to a vCenter machine, so you get access to the local vCenter machine even through RDP or locally, you can shut down the Tomcat system, which is the core system managing a lot of services, just by connecting to a given port and writing shut down. Okay? The user should not be able to know the keyword because this is set in an XML file, which is not accessible by any user. So that's, yeah, it's a leftover. Not very useful for a pen test perspective. You shut down the Tomcat server, and your customer shuts you down. So you don't really want to do that during a pen test, but yeah, it's there. What you want to use during a pen test, it's another module, which is called the VMware Web Access Port Scan. This module has been developed by some friends, by Luca Carrettoni, and it's basically URL forwarding, which actually means doing post request or remote host. So what it has been called URL forwarding is actually using the vCenter as a proxy to perform requests to remote hosts. So that's exactly what this module does. It can be used to exploit the IP-based trust or rich internal networks which are hidden from attacker perspective. You just connect to the web interface and use that. It's a pre-auth attack, so without any credential, and you perform port scan on the remote host. And that's pretty nice as well. You can also use that as a proxy downloading stuff. And that's another attack you can use for management against the management interface. However, management is not just about web interfaces. There is more in that. For instance, there is a nice attack which I was pointed to by my friend Tim, which is all about backend systems. Basically, it used to be that the vCenter, you remember, the management console, connected to the ESX server, the host server, the hypervisors, through SSL to send them commands so you could administer them. Well, it used to be that you could do a man-in-the-middle attack, drop the connection, and as soon as the vCenter would reconnect to the ESX server, it would not check for certificates. Well, it's not working anymore. It has been patched. Nice work by VMware. However, there is an interesting thing. I don't have a module for that because I discovered that 3 days ago or something like that. So the module is not ready yet. But I'm going to tell you about that in a way because it's not a bug by itself. Once again, it must be the administrator doing it wrongly. How does it work? Well, if you are ever in the position of doing man-in-the-middle between the ESX and the vCenter server, and it might happen because you are abusing some misconfiguration at the network level, and because there are a lot of very interesting tools like Clocky to perform low-level attacks to the network, so you can do that. Well, if you can manage to do man-in-the-middle, you can break the connection. So the vCenter has to reconnect back to the ESX servers, to the hypervisor servers. What it does, it will check for the certificate common name. So it will make sure that it is connecting to the same remote common name. Unfortunately, that's the only check. It will only check for the common name. So if you spoof the common name, the admin will still get a pop-up saying, watch out, the certificate cannot be validated. That's true. So the admin still has to click. But as soon as the admin clicks, it's OK, reconnect to the server, he has to provide the root password to connect to the backend server. And you just get the root password. So the admin gets a warning, you get a root password. It's a fire game for me. Okay? So once again, how does this work? You have to do man-in-the-middle between the ESX server and the vCenter. You have to take the ESX server offline by doing man-in-the-middle. It works. It's enough. You wait for reconnection by the admin, which has to manually reconnect to the backend server in all the tests they've done. You spoof the ESX server certificate while doing man-in-the-middle through BARP, for instance. You don't really need any fancy tool for that. I will have a module ready, but it's just to ease up stuff. So you get the common name. Just ask to the ESX server its common name. You spoof the common name, and you get a password. That's easy. Yeah, the admin won't be able to reconnect, though. So you will have to close the man-in-the-middle and let it reconnect, or you will realize that there is something weird going on. So this is, once again, another way that during a pen test, I discovered that during a pen test because I owned the virtual center, but I really wanted the root password of the backend ESX server. So how do I get it? Like this way. So if during a pen test, you still can't get in because all those nice attacks are not working, well, if everything else failed, no, I can. Just kidding. If everything else failed, for me, it's brute forcing. OK, I can't get in. I just brute force the hell out of it. And that's exactly what you can do. A VMware login module, it's standard Metasploit naming, will just do that. We just brute force the standard VMware authentication mechanism. It's actually just a SOAP call to perform the login. So you just provide VMware login with a list of usernames and password and do that. The interesting part is that if you do that to a remote server, there is by default no lockout, as soon as I tested, on the root user, for instance. So brute forcing works pretty well, and the same goes for the administrator user of the local vCenter server. So brute forcing works because no one is stopping you in the long term. About that, just to show you how it works, I have a very short demo just to get you feeling that the module is there. It's not fake. So this is the VMware login module. What it wants is just the remote host and a password file containing all the VMware password and usernames that you want you to test. It's really standard Metasploit here. So you just set the remote host. You can do that multi-threaded or multiple hosts. It's just leveraging standard Metasploit features here. So we set the user pass file, that is wordlist.txt, and we run the exploit, and conveniently, we immediately find the password. At this point, during a pen test, you would be waiting, taking coffee, speaking with the administrators to have them give their passwords to you, and so on. So you don't need to brute force it anymore. Fine. So this is yet another way to get in. So yet another thing you can do. The next time I hear someone saying that pen testing virtualization means just running a Nessus scan, I get to be angry. So, not that Nessus is bad, I mean. We just say that we can brute force that. There is still more to do. There is still more to do. This is a very quick run-through internal attacks, because internal attacks mean that you have already obtained access to a local machine, so you're already able to get inside one of the guest system. So from a pen testing perspective, you already earned your wage, so you can go home now. But there is something I'd like to tell you about this, because there are differences between pen testing guest system and pen testing hardware-based machines. Well, there are multiple local escalation of privileges in virtual machines. Those are not mine. Those are by better researchers than I am. And I will eventually write the modules for them as well. But they are mostly low-level attacks against the CPU or the operating system, are quite complex to run during the pen test, and you can never be sure that you are going to crash the kernel. So not really something you want to do during a pen test. So what do we do? What else is different comparing virtual machines and hardware machines? Well, I think that there is a new attack surface here, because we at least have para-virtualization and supporting tools. In this case, I am researching all the VMware tools and all the local installed tools on the virtual machines. But there is at least one attack which is relevant, which is an attack I found on the VMI, the Virtual Appliance Management Infrastructure, which basically will allow you to run code as root. This VMI is installed just on a small number of products, that is VMware Studio and Data Recovery, I think, just a couple of products. So the attack surface is quite small. But you can still find virtual appliances built with VMware Studio here. The point is that this attack requires authentication to be carried on as root. So it seems quite pointless. I mean, you have to be root to run code as root. Yeah, I know it. But the point is that you can also exploit that locally, without any authentication. So if you ever have any level of access to the virtual machines, any kind of account, then you can escalate your privileges to root. The attack is actually quite simple. It exploits a CHIM server. CHIM servers were recently have seen a very nice exploit exploiting CHIM server, and a lot of people are researching on that stuff. The attack is actually very simple. It's just a shell escape. You escape a shell argument. That is, as you can see, you have the host name, and you can set the host name. This is a call which is used to configure the network of a virtual machine. The VMI server is a local system, it's a local daemon, which you could find in virtual machines, which can be used to administer them. Okay? It's the famous administer stuff from the host tail. Okay? So you don't have to access the virtual machines and so on. You can leverage virtualization features. In this case, the attack is easy, meaning that you just have to add, that very nice symbol and then your payload. The payload was tricky because you could not use space in the default attack. So actually Marsh Ray had to come out with a very nice attack on this. so you could exploit that as well. I've been told that if you use the standard client, there is no need for this encoding, but well, it works. So, summing up, we have seen a lot of attacks, so we can now answer to the question, can we attack virtualization? Yeah, we can. So, we have various ways to attack virtualization infrastructure. We can attack the admin client, sniffing its password, or owning the administrator system. We can attack the hypervisor through directory traversal of the West stealer. We can also attack and hijack the other user session. Or we can attack the administration web interface. Or we can even attack supporting services. So please go home, start hacking, try it at home, and let me know if it works out for you. Vasto can be downloaded, but it is feedbackware, meaning that if you download and use it, you're bound to give me feedback, OK? That's the only thing I ask. So thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, OK. Those are some questions to get you started, if you wish. So. Just kidding. This is my contact, and you can download Vasto from vasto.nibblesec.org, or write me to that email address or tweet me. Keep in mind that I won't be able to read anything for 10 days, more or less. Thank you for listening once again, and see you later.